Good morning, everyone. We are on Thursday, April 23rd, lesson 6. Here we go. Okay, our target today, I can find the area of rectangles with whole by mixed and whole by fractional number side lengths by titling, record by drawing, and relate to fraction multiplication. And you will totally understand that once we get done with this, because we will be going back to the target and you will be able to explain that. Make sure you have materials, a notebook, paper, and your pencil ready to go. And I always like to do a little fluency before we get started. So let's practice your multiples of 9 by using the finger trick that we all know. You can write them down and recite them while you're doing that, or if you're outside, hopscotch to the multiples of 9 by jumping on squares. Or just as you're walking, you can say them out loud. Okay, so let's review multiplying a whole number times a mixed number. We can break apart the mixed number into a whole number and a fraction, and then multiply the whole number times each part, and then combine them. That means adding them together. So look over to the side, for example, 3 times 2 1/4. This is using the distributive property of multiplication. For example, 3 times 2, and then you're going to multiply that 3 again with the 1/4. And then you're going to add those answers together. So you have 6, 3 times 2 gives you 6, plus what you got for 3 times 1/4. And that would be 3/4. So your total answer would be 6 3/4. So let's do some examples. By doing this, this is going to prepare you for our lesson today. Follow along with me and try to solve as I give a couple more examples. Here's the second one. 4 1/2 times 3 1/2, and that's going to turn into, this should look familiar to you when you were in my RTI groups. We discussed and I taught you on how to change a mixed number into an improper fraction. So that's where this answer comes into play. 4 1/2 turns into 9/2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 1 on the top will give you the 9, and it always goes over the same denominator, 9/2. Times, your 3 1/2 now is going to be 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7, and again, it's going to go over your denominator, 2. And that will turn into, so now you've got 7/2. So 9/2 times 7/2 gives you, multiply across your numerators, multiply across your denominators, and you now have 63/4. Don't forget, if the number on the top is bigger than your denominator, it's an improper fraction, and you must divide. And when you divide, you get 15 3/4. So everyone should be writing these examples down as we continue on so that you'll have examples to go back to. For our last example, take a look at this one as I walk you through it. Remember, write this down so you can refer back to it later. Or you could come back to this video if you like. Okay. Take a look at this. Okay, so remember, if you're given 2 mixed numbers to multiply, you have to change them to improper fractions first. So let's do that. 3 1/2 turned into 7/2. How did I get that? Did you forget how to do that? Let's review. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 gives you 7. We always put it over the same denominator, which is 2. 2 1/3, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 gives you 7 over the denominator, which is 3. And then we multiply across, multiply across. 7 times 7 equals 49. 2 times 3 equals 6. When I divide that, because it's an improper fraction, and the top number is more than the denominator, you are going to come up with 8 and 1/6. That should be your answer. Okay, so we're taking a step back from volume today to find the area of rectangles that have fractions, mixed numbers as side lengths. So here's our first model, Model A. This rectangle is showing 3 units as the face, right here, and 2 units for the width. That's on the side. So you've got 3 times 2, 6 squared units. So remember, when we're talking about a two-dimensional shape, it's just written on the page, flat on the page. You're not holding it in your hand like a three-dimensional figure, like a cube. We're back to area, length times width. This one's pretty basic. You're not multiplying any fractions. Sometimes folding the square units using a piece of paper lets you see each square. So this would be like 1 square right here on this paper, and if you folded this paper, you'd have 6 of them on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's Model B. Model B is a little different. We're still going by length times width to find our area squared. So take a look at this picture. We have 3 units length and 2.5 for a width. Okay, so 2 times 3 we're going to do first. So 2 times 3 is 6. Look at my picture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives me 2 times 3. Now I'm going to multiply a half times 3. A half 3 times. That's what the picture is showing. A half, a half, a half. And when I do that, you should come over here and check this out. You have 3 times 2 is a half, or I'm sorry, 3 times 2.5 equals 3 times 5 over 2 equals 15 over 2, which equals 7.5. Okay, so whatever you multiplied, you are adding them together, and you're getting your answer. Okay, 3 times 2 plus 3 times a half equals 7.5 square units. So when multiplying mixed fractions, remember, you need to make your mixed numbers into an improper fraction first, then multiply across for your numerator and multiply across for your denominator. Here's another way of looking at Model B. This one was on the prior slide that you just saw. Here it's showing you again. 2 times 3 is 6, and a half times 3 is 3, which would give you 3 of these. A half, and a half is going to be 1.5. So then I'm going to say 6 units plus 1.5 units is 7.5 units squared. Squared because we're only doing area, length times width. Okay, for our lesson practice, I'm going to do this one, and then you could try this one on your own. Then you could try more on your own. So this one, here's your picture. I have 3 as a length, and I have 2.5 here. Okay, so you see the 6 boxes to represent 2 times 3. Okay, and then you have a half times these 3, that's 1.5. And you add them together, and you get 7.5. That goes over what we just did. our next one, let's do this one together. Here is your length. Here's your length and your width. So what I see is 5 times 1.5. Okay, so 1 times 5 is 5. Okay. A half times 5 is 2.5 units squared. And then we're going to take the two of them and add them together, and we're going to get 7.5 units squared. Or you could have done 1.5 and made that into an improper fraction, which would be 3/2, and multiply that by 5/1, and still get 7.5 units. Okay, so 5 units long times 1.5 units wide gives you 7.5 units squared. Hold that over so you can see it. There you go. Okay, now I'd like you to do 2 of these on your own. I'm going to give you some time to draw and figure out the dimensions. Remember, this is length times width, which is area, which when you label, it's units squared. John tiled some rectangles using square units. Sketch the rectangles. That means draw a rectangle for me, fill in the missing information, and then confirm the area by multiplying. That means confirm means show me a multiplying sentence and then solve it. And let me see what you get for an answer. What should your rectangle look like? What is your area? Okay, you can pause this video and try that on your own and come back and see if you got the right answer. So go ahead and pause and work that out and then come back. Okay, so I have, your drawing should look like 4 units long and 2.5 units wide. Okay, so my picture looks like this. Oops. I could bring it down here. Not staying off of it. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have 2 rows, and I have a half row down here. Okay, so that's my sketch or my drawing. Okay, 4 times 2.5. So you could have said 2 times 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You see me counting the squares, so that part's right. And then you'd have to say a half times 4. A half is 1 whole, and a half is 2. What should your answer be? Eight plus 2 is 10. 10 units squared. Okay, try this next one now. Make your sketch and solve 4 units long, 1/3 wide. Go ahead and pause it again. Sketch it for me, draw, and then label with units squared and tell me what you got for an answer. Did you draw your rectangle to show what it would look like? I drew mine like this. 4, and this is only 1/3 wide. What does your sentence look like? Length times width, of course. Your length, 4 times 1/3. Inches squared, labeled. 4 times 1/3 is going to give you 4/3. And yes, that's an improper fraction, and you must divide, and you will get 1 1/3 when you come up with your answer. Okay, let's look at our target again. I can find the area of rectangles with whole by mixed and whole by fractional number side lengths by tiling, recording our drawing, and relating to fraction multiplication. Okay, so in this lesson we multiplied mixed numbers by whole numbers, as well as drawing a picture to show what we are looking at. When we had a mixed number for one of our sides, we broke it apart and then we added those parts together once we multiplied them. So remember, any questions, please contact me. And have a great night. We'll do this again tomorrow.